Sequence. Recursive formula for geometric sequences. So you want to complete the recursive formula of the geometric sequence. So looking at this, you have the C of 1, and then you also need to find what comes after the parentheses. So we can come right over to the sequence, and this is the first number in the sequence, this is the second number, this is the third number, and this is the fourth number. So C of 1 would be a negative 0.6. Now what you want to do next is find what number are you multiplying. In other words, what is the rule? How can they move from negative 0.6 to 3? Yeah, that might be kind of tough to see. But what about 3 to a negative 15? Or what about negative 15 to actually to positive 75? Well, looking at this, the 3 to the negative 15 would actually be the easiest one to see, because what you could do is you could simply take the negative 15, you could divide it by the 3, and you would get a negative 5. So the rule would be times and by a negative 5. And let me write that as a negative 5. So we could make this as a negative 5. So we want to times each one by a negative 5 to get the next term. Well, let's see if that works. Well, negative 0.6, so we could say a negative 0.6 times, negative 5. So this would be a negative 5. Well, 6 times 5 would be actually 30, but we'd have to move the decimal back one place because we're multiplying with the decimal, because 6 times 5 is 30, but then we have to slide that back. This is also a negative and this is a negative, so both negatives become a positive. So there's our 3. Now for the 15, we could say 3 times a negative 5. Well, 3 times 5 we know is 15, but we do have the one negative sign, so it's a negative 15. Now we can take the negative 15 times that by negative 5. So 5 times 5 would be 25, carry the 2 would actually be 75. But you see the two negatives here, that becomes a positive. So our rule is negative, we're multiplying by a negative 0.5, or by, not by negative 0.5, but we're multiplying actually by negative 5. So we're multiplying by a negative 5. So times in this by a negative 5. So let's put those numbers in there. So let's go to the top box. Let's say negative 0.06. I forgot the decimal in there, so let's start again. So negative 0.6, and then let's go negative 5. So let's check that. Okay, next question. Again, we want to look at what we're given here. And this is the first number in the sequence. The 60 is the second. The 12 is the third, and then the 2.4 is the fourth. So the very first number in the sequence is 300. Now we have to figure out what the rule is. Notice that the numbers are actually getting smaller here. So you're going from 300 to 60. You're going from 60 to 12, and then 2.4. So what's occurring here with the numbers getting smaller here, it's almost like we're dividing by 5. But you can't really show dividing by 5, so the better way to write that would be actually timesing by 1/5. Now how can we get to 1/5? Well, you could say 60 over 300. You could take this 60, put over 300, or you could take the 12 and put it over the 60, or you could take the decimal 2.4 and put over the 12. Probably let's work with the 12 and the 60. Let's try that one first. So we would say 12 over 60. Since 12 comes after 60, that goes on top. They're both even numbers. We can divide by 2. So that becomes 6 over 30. We could divide by 2. That becomes 3 over 15. and 3 does go into 15 5 times. So it looks like we're timesing by 1/5. Well, let's see if that works with the 300. If I take 300 times this 1/5, do I get 60? Well, I get 300 over 5, and notice 5 does go into 36 times, but there is a 0 there, so that works. That is a 60. So that one works. So now we know that already the 12 and the 60 works. What about the 2.4 and the 12? Well, anytime you have a decimal in there, what you want to do is slide it to the right. So you make this 24, but you got to slide this one to the right as well. So that 12 will actually become 120 because we're going to move all the decimals to the right. So 2.4 becomes 24, 12 becomes 120. We divide this by 2, we get 12 over 60. Okay, again, they're both even numbers. We can divide by 2. So we get 6 over 30, divide by 2, and we get 3 over 15. We already know from previous one that 3 over 15 is 1/5. So the rules on the problem here is we're timesing everything by 1/5. And notice that there is no sign change, so that would be a positive 1/5. So the first number to sequence we said was 300, and we're timesing by the fraction 1 over 5. Okay, again, we have a recursive formula here, so we want to look at our sequence over here. So our first number in the sequence is negative 5.6. Our second number in the sequence here is negative 5.6. Then we have a negative 56, and then we have a negative 560. So our numbers are going to the right here. It looks like they're increasing over by 1 because their decimal was here. Now the decimal's been shifted over 1 place. The decimal's been shifted over 2 place. The decimal's been shifted over 3 place. So the very first term in the sequence is a negative 0.56. And again, it looks like we're simply multiplying by 10. And it's a positive 10 because all the signs stay the same. So if we take a negative 0.56, so this is a negative, we times this by 10, what we're going to do is we're going to slide our decimal over 1 place, and we do get the negative 5.6. Now we take the negative 5.6 times the 10, and that's a negative 56. That's correct. Now we take the negative 56 times this by 10, and there's our negative 560. So our rule is we're multiplying by 10. So the top box we're going to say negative, so we're going to go put a 0.56, and then we're timesing each time, or multiplying by 10. So our rule is multiplying by 10. Okay, next one. Again, we're dealing with the recursive formula here, and this is our first term, second term, third term, fourth term. So the very first term is 500, so 500 will go in this box. Now we got to figure out our rule is. Now notice again the numbers are getting smaller. You know, from 500 down to 200, 200 down to 80, and then 32. So our second number is 200, and our first number is 500. What you could do is you could cross out each one of these zeros here, and you're left with 2 over 5. Well, let's see what that happens here with the 80 and the 200. So let's say we take the 80 over the 200. we can do is like we did before. Here we crossed out these zeros here. You can cross out zeros here, so you have 8 over 20. They're both even numbers, so you can divide by 2, so you get 4 over 10. You can divide by 2, and there's your 2/5. So let's take a look at the last one. 32 over 80. Divide this by 2, that's 16 over 40. Divide this by 2, this is 8 over 20. Go ahead and divide this by 2, and this becomes 4/10. And divide by 2, and there it is again, 2/5. So the number that we're multiplying each time is by 2 over 5. And we know it's a fraction because the numbers themselves are going smaller. So let's put a 500 here. Let's put the fraction 2/5 here.